So today in the workshop we've got my Caterpillar, which is a new arrival to the stable. It's a 412-2 Loco based on the Class 9000, designed by LBSC. The Class 9000 is an American Loco actually, so despite the Flying Scotsman-esque colours, LNER colours, the sort of the massive dome kind of gives it away. It's an American style Loco. So we've got a couple of issues I found when I was running it the first day I got it. I don't think the axle pumps are piped up properly, and also it felt like one side the timing was going out and then coming back in again. So maybe a problem with the slip eccentrics, or if I bring you down, it has the classic LBSC rocking levers, so one of those may be loose, so we need to check that. So I'm going to pop it on its side and let's have a look, see what we can do. Luckily the guy bought it off, Tony, he's got a set of plans which he's had laminated, so that's quite handy, so we'll be referring to those. Okay, so we've got the Loco on its side now. It's too big to even fit in the frame, but I'll show you what we're looking at anyway. So we've got the ash pans here, and the trailing pony truck actually sits attached to the ash pan, and it's quite a lot of resistance there to movement because the ash pan's a bit rusty. So I think the springs in these plungers are a bit fierce at the moment. I was finding the rear pony was derailing quite often. So I'm going to pop that out so we can have a good clean up in this area. This axle here is driving the twin axle pumps. This is the feed pipe that goes into this Y piece. There's two Ys at the top. One goes to a non-return valve under the boiler, which I'm pointing at. The second Y comes to one here, and that's the bypass, which comes out on this pipe here, and there is a bypass valve on the left hand side there. So I need to have a look at that bypass valve and make sure that's working properly. So that's the axle pump side. The slip eccentrics run off this axle, which is the next axle forward. There's definitely this top one, so the right hand side is very loose. So it's possible that's just always slipping. The actual eccentrics seem to be nicely pinned to the axle at the moment, so I don't think that's a problem. So the other thing is the lubricator empties its tank very quickly. So the lubricator's right at the front here, and the lubricator drive comes off this axle. And it's got its own eccentric. So I'll probably take off the front bogie, so I've got a bit more access. I'd like to adjust the leverage if I can, just so it's feeding a little less oil, if that's possible. While it's on its side, I've already started to give it a really good clean, and I'll probably keep giving it the odd spray of solvent just to get rid of all the built up clag. See, I need to get the hoover in to clear all this excess coal out, unburnt coal. I didn't run it for that long because I was struggling to get water into the boiler because of the axle pump situation. So one thing I did want to point out is we have actually got an injector fitted here. So that is about 3/4 of an inch away from the ash pan. So we've got intense heat here, sort of white hot almost. So it's heating up these frames, and yeah, this has no chance whatsoever really of working. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing is removing that. Something we need to think about, because it's where it's sited at the moment, it's got no chance of actually working because it'll just be getting too hot. But yeah, I think we'll get rid of all this ash first. That has given me quite a good view of what all the pipe work's doing, so we can figure out what's going on there. So I think this one's for the hand. This is the hand pump. That's the bypass, and then that's the water inlet for the injector, and then we've got the axle pump inlet there. That all makes sense. So what I've noticed looking at the eccentrics is that this slip eccentric is very loose and moves freely between forward and reverse, whereas this one struggles a bit. It's now doing it, but I was finding initially it was sort of getting into a jammed position. So that's both engaged, and you'll see that that isn't moving, whereas this one is. Hopefully you can see that. And now they're both engaged again. So this one generally feels a bit tighter. That one's very loose. But also what I'm noticing is these keep plates are not particularly nicely made, and this side is definitely rubbing on the slip eccentric, so that's not going to help. So I think kind of what I need to do is possibly sort these keep plates out a bit, so they're a bit thinner in the middle. But the rocking levers are all nice and solid. So that's the only issue I can see really, is that this one's stiff and this one isn't. I don't know enough about slip eccentrics to know which is the better situation. And there's quite a disparity between the springing. So this one is quite lightly sprung. The front ones are very lightly sprung. Really, you'd want these ones to be the stiffest. But if anything, the axle pump, well, these three rear ones are stiffer than the driving wheels. So I don't think that's ideal. So whilst fiddling around with things, what I've noticed is that if I move that, that's the handle which you can attach, the user can get to, the driver can get to, but it's not actually moving the shaft. So it's very stiff, and it's got loose by the looks of it, so it's just not doing anything. So that's the reason why the axle pump wasn't working. So I think I'll take this off and strip it down a bit, perhaps give it a bit of a clean. I've removed this valve, and it's very stiff. I think the reason why it's very stiff is it's got this spring which is just ridiculously strong. So I think I might just see if we can loosen that off a little bit. Let's try that. See, that's loads easier to move. So I think what's happened is that's got screwed in too far, and it's letting that just jam up completely. So we will clean it in some acid pickle. May as well, as it's off. And then what I'll do is when this gets attached, we'll put a bit of Loctite on it. So we'll put them so that that and that are in the same orientation. I assume that's closed. But to be fair, this is actually a drain valve, I think, a cylinder drain. So it's perhaps not the right valve anyway. I have got on the tender there's a redundant valve, which might be a better bet. So I will have a look at the tender before I put this back on, but we need to get it cleaned anyway, so we'll do that now. So I'll just try and dismantle it. Take the nut off and the spring, that doesn't need to go in. See, it's a conical, it's a classic. Oh, and look, this isn't in line with that, so that's not helpful either, is it? Not helpful at all. Anyway, in the acid it goes for a little while. Might as well pickle the handle while we're at it. So we'll let that sizzle away for a bit, and I shall go and see what my other options are. So this is the front of the tender here. So we've got a valve here that's not really being used for anything. It's purely it's in the line of the axle pump feed, but we always really want the axle pump to be on. And sort of traditionally, this is the sort of valve that I would expect on a axle pump bypass. You know, it basically it's a conical point type valve. So what that gives you is quite a fine control on how much water's going in the boiler and how much is coming through the bypass, so you can sort of fine tune how much the boiler's being fed. So we can take that off and just replace it with a bit of pipe. Actually, looking at the footplate area, it's quite cluttered here at the moment because the injector's there, and really that's just no good. That's not a great position for an injector. So I am considering removing this. The best place for it would be outside the cab, I think. So I would consider putting it there. Would need to figure out. So it's going into a clack on the back head, that feed. So really it could go anywhere, but apart from where it is at the moment, which is quite a terrible spot for it. So I think what I'll do is I'll remove that, put this one off the tender in its place, this valve, and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so this is the bypass valve from the tender, which is redundant really. So what I can see here is if I remove this pipe for the injector, there is a space I can poke this through. I think this thread matches that thing, so that might work out really well. So I'm going to take the injector off now, I think, and get that out of the way for the time being, and we'll have to think of somewhere else to put it. I say ideally it wants to be on the outside of the frame where it's a bit cooler. So, but that's a job for another day, I think. So I'll put you back on time lapse. So I've just popped this in the acid for a little while just to clean out any lime scale. It was quite fizzy. So what I'm going to do now is give it a bit of sealer, pop it up so it sits in there, basically as high up as we can get it really. So I've needed to do a little bit of tweaking just to clear this corner of the ash pan, but that's nice and solid in. I've just adjusted this pipe a little bit so it's pointing that way a bit better, and we've got some clearance to put the rubber pipe on as well. So so that's looking good. So the next job is to just adjust this and see what we need to change on the side of the tender. See if we need to change anything at all. But I'm hoping we can just use a rubber pipe to the existing copper pipe. I think we can squeeze this on. There we go, and then that will go off to the, hopefully to the other side. So that's all good. So I've just mocked up the connections. So this was the injector one, which actually has got a shut-off valve, so I can just leave that as is for now. The routing of the hand pump is a little bit it's getting pinched by this feed that needs to go to this pipe now. So what I think I might do is take off the axle pump feed and the bypass, which is this one you can barely see now. Take that off. Might take this off as well, actually, just so we can see what's going on. I'm going to anneal them, and then I'm going to move the bypass up to basically the same position here, so it's just poking through, so we can just plop that on. So you get a better view of the routing now. So this is the axle pump feed, and that really needs to just come in a straight line through here, so that can go underneath this stretcher. And this is the hand pump feed, which is in a spiral, and that needs to come alongside here. It's obviously interfering with this bogie and possibly the front one as well, so that's probably why the tender kept derailing as well. So this is what I've come up with. I've laid the spiral a bit flatter, so it's not sticking down for the bogies to hit. And I've run the hand pump output right on this side now. The bypass is now nearer the middle. It's a little bit close to the bogie, but I think we're okay there. And then the feed water for the axle pump comes in through this top one. This pipe isn't used at the moment, but it has got an isolating valve here, so that's okay. So I think that's got enough flexibility. It's got the spiral there. I mean, ideally you'd want to put a flexible pipe there, so I might look at doing that in the future. I'm a bit concerned as how long this gap is. It's quite a bit longer than you'd normally have, and it's a long tender to start with, so it's it makes for a long reach to all the controls. But we'll I think we'll run it like that and see if the pump's working properly now. Okay, so let's take the front bogie off. So I've removed the Lubricator eccentric, it was actually upside down, so the oil hole was at the bottom. So never mind, eh? But I think this this one had Loctite on it, so I'll just clean the threads out, so we can pop it back in again, but this time the right way round. So after quite a lot of trial and error, what I've done is I've moved this position. Here was where the spring was mounted, so I've moved the spring down one notch so it's a bit more extended, and put the actuating lever where the spring was, and that seems to be working quite nicely. I'll give you a quick demo. So that's one click, 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 click. So we're getting one click for every rod movement, which should be enough oil. You just want a little constant stream of oil coming through into the cylinders. So this axle with the slip eccentrics, especially this side, I noticed that there was some witness marks where the slip eccentric was actually touching the axle box keep. So what I've done is I've really shaved that right down, so it's almost touching the mounting hole, and I've smoothed that off as well. So if it's touching anything, it's rubbing on the gunmetal castings. But now even actually, yeah, it has improved things. So even with obviously all the axle weight pushing downwards onto the problem side, it's changing direction perfectly. There's no friction there now. So I think that might have solved the problem. It was literally just like a mil of interference there. So we'll give that a go. So I think I'll stop this video here. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's something a bit different. I needed to have a break from Britannia really, so I thought I'd do a bit of fettling on my new toy. And yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Like, share and subscribe. Leave a comment, always interested to hear your comments. And I'll see you in the next one.